All right, welcome to this month's Best Practices webinar series from the Recruiting Insider. Folks, I appreciate you signing up, and we've got a great turnout again this week, and we expect that this webinar is just going to continue to grow every week. FYI, I think Hire Right's going to start blasting it out to their members, the American Trucking Association Safety Management Council. Actually, it got a little late. It went out in the newsletter today, but in the future it'll be going out as well. And I certainly appreciate the support of those two organizations. And we'll just keep growing and keep bringing great information for everybody everybody attending. And with that being said, I tell you what, I do not take it lightly. Today, our guest speaker is Derek Hinton, president of CrimApollo, and he's going to talk to us about criminal records and the EEOC. Folks, Derek Hinton is, in my opinion, and he may be embarrassed by me saying this, probably the most knowledgeable expert in our industry on consumer reports. He wrote the book on it, literally, 2 of them. So talk about a guy that can write some dry material. And so, Derek, welcome to the webinar, sir.
Thanks, I think.
Yeah, hanging out with me, Derek, you're going to get picked on. So he never knows what's coming. Derek has been a guest speaker at some of my conferences, and I certainly appreciate that. But as always, I want to recognize Ramsey MediaWorks for sponsoring this webinar. And Matt Lee from Ramsey MediaWorks is with me. And folks, we're going to have, when I say as always, our plan is every call to have a Ramsey Minute. But before I let Matt start talking about his tip this month, I want to draw your attention to the website at the top of the screen, recruitingsessions.com. Folks, do go there. And what it is Matt is shooting a series of videos talking about recruiting advertising. The very first video, I'm just telling you, you gotta watch it. It starts out like no other instructional video you've ever seen. I'm just telling you. And as I watch those videos with Matt, he's like, hey, look, we're about to release. I couldn't wait to see the next one because of the humor, the video clips that are in there. The information is over the top. So absolutely, it's going to be entertaining and educational. Highly recommend that you go and watch recruitingsessions.com. With that being said, Matt, thank you so much for joining us again this week. And folks, Ramsey MediaWorks is a full-service advertising agency. If you are looking for a way to find quality drivers, Ramsey can help. And with that being said, Matt, share with us what you brought this month.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And I hope that you all do get a chance to go visit the recruitingsessions.com. We're planning on launching several different videos in that series, and so I hope you go there and enjoy it. Last month we discussed the importance of following up with the short forms and doing that within the first 5 minutes, and creating a process to be able to handle those short forms. And if you do that within that first 5 minutes, statistics show that you're 900% more likely to hire that particular candidate. So that's what we discussed last month. And today I want to share with you a little bit about job boards and some questions that I am frequently asked. And the biggest question that I get asked is, do they work? And which one works the best? And the answer is yes, they do work. But you have to find the right one that fits for your specific needs and your company. And so I've just put together 6 quick questions here that you should ask before you take that next step with that vendor. Number 1 is, is it a general purpose job board, or are you industry specific? So what I mean by that is, are you a career builder or a multi, industry type job board, or are you in the transportation world specific? So that's the first question you should ask. Second would be, are you a nationwide coverage, or can I geo-target? Can I just look for drivers in the Denver market, for instance, or do I have to be on a nationwide search with your particular job board? You should also ask what type of driver. Are you specifically geared toward company drivers or owner-operators, as well as type of equipment? Do you, lean toward reefer drivers or flatbed or tankers? There's multiple different job boards out there, and some are specifically geared toward type of equipment, so it's important to ask that question. The third thing would be, are you going to be delivering multi-carrier apps or direct apps to me? Multi-carrier apps, I like to use the analogy, it's almost like a dating site. So a driver goes on there, he fills out his information, his qualifications, his where he lives, the type of job that he's looking for, and then he gets matched with multiple carriers. So he gets to decide which carriers that gets his resume or his information. So he may send that out to 7 carriers. That's a multi-carrier app. Versus a direct app where he puts in his information, he gets matched with one specific carrier. That one carrier is the only one that gets that app. So that's important to know which types of apps that you're going to be receiving from that particular company. Do they do any external marketing? Are they doing a Google pay-per-click campaign to drive more traffic to their particular site to make sure that your ads are being seen by more folks? Can they provide any references from current customers who's using that product, and being able to call and ask and see how it's working for them? And then number 6, ask for a trial. Never hurts to ask. Some will, some won't, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And sometimes they'll offer, maybe a free 15-day trial with a next month's insertion order or something of that nature. So it never hurts to ask when you get to that point for a trial. So with that, I just wanted to send you the 6 things here that would help you decide whether or not that job board's right for you. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding job boards or any advertising for that matter. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly.
Hey, Matt, thank you so much for that. And that, frankly, was some very good information, because I find that sometimes people treat all Internet leads as the same, and they absolutely are not. Folks, I do want to bring to your attention on your webinar tree, there's a place for you to ask questions, and I am monitoring those questions. And so please feel free to ask questions as we go along, and we will ask those of the presenters as we go. Derek, are you seeing the screen as you should be seeing? And I'm getting feedback somehow. I'll mute my phone here in a second.
No, I don't see a thing, Kelly.
You don't see a thing.
I'm teasing.
Oh, you gave me a panic attack. All right, Derek, I am turning you back. Yeah, there you go. I am turning the control over to you, and without further ado, folks, Derek Hinton, the president of CrimApollo. And Matt, if you'd mute your phone as well, you probably already have, but I'm going to mute mine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about criminal records, the EEOC, and something that is really connected with both of those topics, and that is known as Ban the Box, or sometimes the Fair Chance Act. I started my career at DAC Services in 1984. I spent about 18 years there until until about 2002 when USIS bought us, and I spent about 20 years there. For the next 2 years with USIS, that company is now HireRight. And in the 1990s, we were providing driving records, employment histories, and people kept saying, we would like to get criminal records for the screening process. And we went to the FBI and in some places, and they said, well, you have to be a specialized industry to get those from us, the NCIC, National Criminal Information Center. And so the only other way was through states and counties, and we looked at that, and there were about 3,500 counties, and we were like, this is a pretty big deal. So as we started offering criminal records, it came in that the primary law that was affecting criminal records in the employment screening process was, of all things, the EEOC. And so, let's do a brief review here. What does the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, have to do with criminal records? And there's a couple of ways that the EEOC will come down on you using criminal records. And the obvious one is disparate treatment, and that is where if you got in 100 applications and your executive made a decision that they were going to order criminal records only on, say, the African Americans, or only on the women, or something like that, that would be intentional. That's obvious discrimination. That's disparate treatment, and that's obviously something bad. Not many companies are doing that. There's a less obvious way that companies are getting in trouble, went too far, and that is something that the EEOC calls disparate impact. So if you had that executive who decided to order, they got in 100 applications and they decided to only order criminal records, say, on African Americans, that executive got fired. That's clearly bad. The new executive says, okay, what we're going to do on 100 applications that we get in, we're going to take away all data where we can tell what gender they are, what race they are. We're going to take away their names. We're going to have an independent party go through there, and we are just going to not hire anybody with a felony, say, in the past 10 years. We won't know anything about them, but we are going to create a clear line standard. Well, that is has been decided that can be discrimination because of the disparate impact that would have on certain protected groups. Hispanics and African Americans are both arrested and convicted in disproportionate amounts. So the EEOC, that was kind of always there, but they came in 2012 and they issued some guidance on the employer use of arrest and conviction records. We're from the transportation industry, and usually there's a proposed notice of rulemaking that comes with this, or Congress passes a law, and something changes, and this was neither. This was we're from the government, and we're here to help you, and we're just going to provide you guidance. We're going to help you. And so they put out this guidance, and it requires you to do some, they would say it doesn't require you, but it imposes some new obligations on employers in the use of criminal records. And so, the question is, well, that was 4 years ago. Does this really affect employers? It absolutely does. They immediately filed suit against a couple of large companies who had the means to defend themselves even, BMW and Dollar General. And what they said, was that these companies, it was the disparate impact. They weren't purposefully discriminating, but they had clear line exceptions, or they had some rules that anybody who does cannot be hired or gets let go. And so they took on these two companies in 2013, and then just a few months ago, one of them settled, and BMW is going to pay $1.6 million and to settle the suit. I think Dollar General got out with in 5 figures. We've heard a little bit about this, and some attorney generals have written to the EEOC. They did it way back, and so there's been, it's kind of an ongoing process. And what the EEOC says is, well, look, there's nothing to see here. Nothing changed. We were just trying to help employers. We're simply reciting and applying the text of Title VII, which sets it forth. So, nothing happened with these attorney generals who wrote to them. This is really big on the EEOC enforcement list. You can go and see their strategic enforcement plan for fiscal years 2013 to 2016. It takes them a long time to do some research, but number one on their list for strategic enforcement priorities is eliminating barriers in recruitment and hiring. And they're going to target class-based recruitment and hiring practices that discriminate against protected groups. So, this is pretty high on their list to do. So, how did the new guidance differs from their earlier policy statements, and that it says that you have to analyze the job, you have to analyze whether the criminal record or criminal records is job related and consistent with business necessity. So you can't just have, their point is that if you're hiring a ditch digger and they have a felony embezzlement from 1 year ago, who cares if they steal a dirt clod? They want you to look at the job, its attributes, and then look at the criminal record, its severity, certainty, timing, and nature of the offense, and then mesh the two together to try and determine if it's job related and consistent with business necessity. And even if you think it is, then there's about 8 questions that you have to do for an individualized assessment for those people that you've identified where it may be job related and consistent with business necessity. So, what we kind of think is the EEOC, they cannot investigate everybody. I can tell you what, though, they're going to go after companies that use, or industries that use a lot of criminal records, that do a lot of hiring, and so they're not going to go after, bookbinders. They're going to go after the companies that are churning through applicants and that are using a lot of criminal records. But even when they can't investigate every company, there's blood in the water. And what has happened is that guidance has come out, and plaintiff attorneys are using that guidance to sue companies based on the guidance. So, for example, in July 2014, the Census Bureau was sued, and it was a class action. And it had nothing to do, it was the EEOC didn't bring suit, it was a private action. So that's kind of what happens here, is that the EEOC comes out with guidance, they go after a few companies, and then the plaintiff attorneys get into the mix. And so, and you do the same thing every time. If you've got a bright line exclusion when you're doing hiring, that means you've done it over and over, and that means class action. So that was the Census Bureau. They also, there was a lawsuit against Metro, a class action lawsuit recently, and said they had overly broad, unjustifiably rigid, and unduly harsh employment screening policies. So that's still going on. Again, that was not from the EEOC. That's a class action lawsuit by the plaintiff attorneys. And so right now we're going to meetings on recruiting, and they're going to meetings to figure out how to exploit this guidance. What people don't understand, and I'm going through this real quick, is, I think there's the EEOC guidance that is, for use of criminal records, but then there's a whole new movement out there called Ban the Box. The box being the box on the employment application where you ask, have you ever been convicted of a crime, or have you ever committed a felony? The box varies by company, but they're wanting to ban all criminal record inquiries prior to you really offering kind of a conditional job offer. And the problem is, there's about 100 cities and counties that have already passed some form of ban the box, and there's about 22 states that have, and they go all over the place. New York City has a special form that you have to use after you make a conditional job offer. If you rescind the job offer, you have to use this special form to fill it out and do all of this stuff if you rescind the job offer. Other states have said, okay, this only applies to public employees, not private. But I can tell you, sometimes it's hard to look into a crystal ball and see what's happening or where this is going to go. But I can tell you, ban the box is not going to slow down because it has some bipartisan support. And so, what that means is, on ban the box, if you know, and it's coming, and it's getting, you know, Austin just in the last month, Austin, Texas just passed it. So as you're going through here and you don't hire somebody, or you rescind a job offer based on a criminal record, what that means is that it's very clear why you did not hire that person, and it is because of the criminal record. And so what that means is that, sorry, I went too far ahead here. What that means is that all of a sudden now you're in the EEOC realm, and they're going to be looking really carefully. You rescinded the job offer, so it's obvious it was because of the criminal record. Now they're going to look and say, well, did you look at the nature of the offense? Did you look at its severity, its certainty, its timing, the number of them? And did you have pretty clear job attributes on all your positions to determine if, even if the person did have a felony or a conviction or several convictions, does that have anything to do with how they can perform the essential job functions? And so if you get to that point, you need to have, then you should have performed an individualized assessment. And the EEOC has specific things that you need to look at when you do your individualized assessment. Job relatedness, the nature of the job, the nature and gravity of the offense, the timing, was it consistent with business necessity? And then on the individualized assessment, you know, the guidance that they put out was 50 some pages with about 120 footnotes. And out of that, you can get about 8 or 9 questions that you for sure need to check off before you rescind a job offer based on somebody that you don't want to hire because of a criminal record. I really can't stress this enough. It's a kind of a, it's not a dual threat, but one kind of leads to the other. The ban the box makes the EEOC enforcement guidance a lot more important. Just about a week ago, I mean, this is, if you've watched the Democratic presidential debates, bless your heart, but if you have, I mean, the ban the box has come up in these debates. And you know, April 24th to April 30th. In other words, just next week, it is the National Re-Entry Week, as they call it, and this is, you know, the Fair Chance Business Pledge. Several big companies have pledged that they are going to ban the box and not consider criminal records. These are big guys. These are American Airlines, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Facebook, Georgia Pacific, Google, Xerox, Starbucks, Uber, Coke. So these are big companies that are taking this pledge and ban the box. Again, it's hard to have a crystal ball, but it is only going to grow more. So my recommendation to you, I mean, even if it's only, if your state or your municipality is not one of these with ban the box, the EEOC guidance from 2012 recommends that you do not make any criminal record inquiries until after you've done all of the other stuff. And so that's in the 52 pages from back in 2012. So I would recommend that you have a pretty clear process that looks at the job attributes, evaluates the criminal record by several different factors, and then you perform an individualized assessment. And whatever you do, document. Don't just do it on people you don't want to hire. Don't just do it on people you do want to hire. You need to have a complete program. I'm not going to do a commercial, but CrimApollo is an online service that will allow you to do just that and document it, and it's at CrimApollo.com. So with that, Kelly, I think I sped through that pretty quick, and I will hand it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Derek. We did have one question, and folks, please, if you have questions, type them in to your screen there, and I'll read them to Derek, and we'll work to get them all answered right now. If not, we'll answer and email everybody the answers. But here's a question, Derek. So the question of conviction can be on the application once job offer made and accepted, correct?
Yeah, but it's a timing issue. It shouldn't. You can have that. Usually the employment you can ask them about that, and it can be on a in a written form. You can certainly ask them about that, but in these certain the recommendation from the EEOC and some of these municipalities and states prohibit that before you do the other stuff, and usually an employment application is right up there at the front.
Right. So what I'm thinking is this is a question that's asked in a future future application or future checkoff sheet. And what we call, I have a program, applicant tracking system that we rolled out. It's called TruckRight. And in TruckRight, we call that sensitive information, and we literally, carriers can decide there are certain questions they ask after the contingent offer, and that's when they pose this sensitive information document to the applicant. And that's where you could ask about the
absolutely
conviction.
It's like the old timers will remember the Americans with Disabilities Act when that came out, and all of a sudden all the questions that you asked right up front about physical ability to perform the job, can you lift this stuff to the back of the truck 50 times a day, all of a sudden you couldn't ask that up front. That had to be after a conditional job offer. And the reason was really the same, because if you did rescind the job offer, it was because you were doing it because of the person's physical handicap, and it was easier for them to sue.
Gotcha. Yep. So we're not saying, okay, whoops, I got another question. Our EE have accepted the job and then they do the full app. Okay, that's just an explanation.
Okay.
They're saying they've accepted the job, then they do the full app. So that's interesting. All righty, thank you for that clarification. But for others, most people, they do the application, do the verifications, do the consumer reports and everything, and then they're ready to move forward in the application, and you could offer a contingent offer and then ask the question. Yep. Here's another question, Derek. So if something shows up at the time, how do you withdraw the offer without trouble? So here you are, you've made the contingent offer. Oh man, we're getting lots of questions now. But you've made the contingent offer, and then boom, something shows up. How do you withdraw? How do you get out of there?
Okay, you look at the job attributes, and then you look at the criminal record. You assess the criminal record by the nature of the offense, its severity. Was it a felony, misdemeanor? Its certainty. Was it an arrest, or is it pending, or was it an actual conviction? You look at the date that it happened, and then how many of them were there? Severity, certainty, timing, nature of the offense. With the job attributes. If you decide you don't want to hire the person, then you go through this individualized assessment. The individualized assessment is where has the person, one of the questions is, has the person been rehabilitated? I don't know what the devil that means. You go to a meeting, I'm Derek and I'm a felon. There's certain questions in a checkoff box that you considered this a successful experience since the crime. You need to notify the applicant, see if he disputes it. Was it him? Does he dispute that it's job related? And then you document your decision making. The EEOC usually will not come in and say you made the wrong decision. What they'll say is that you didn't have a process. You didn't go through and document it and have a process that you treated everybody, that you went through this.
Well, and I do invite everybody, please, I highly recommend check out CrimApollo.com because he's got that process nailed down. And it is very inexpensive to utilize his services on that. Hey, one other question. Many jurisdictions put nolle prosse on the conviction. Can we ask for documentation on what they were truly charged with?
Yeah, no prosecution. That is not really a conviction. Those should be limited. Your employment screener probably will not even report that to you if it's over 7 years old because it's not a conviction. But yeah, you can you can go and see what that was for. Absolutely, you can investigate that. And by all means, as you're going through the individualized assessment, one of the things is you'll be asking the applicant to provide his side of the story.
Another question: can you, in the background, before asking the questions, for example, we run. This is what I think the guy means. They're running the criminal record, the DAC report, the MVRs, all that right up front in the PSP. So they're running that up front, but so we don't ask about it, it sounds like, until we don't ask about it on the application per se until after a contingent offer is made. Should we hold off on running the criminal records check until later in the process?
That's the recommendation. They want to know why it was that you did not hire that person. That is it's not just a box, it's not just the physical box that they're banning. It's inquiries, and so they want you to order the driving record, the DAC report, the other stuff, and say this guy looks good. His references all check out, and then do the criminal record. And then if you rescind the job offer, then they know you rescinded it because of the criminal record, not because somebody else was better qualified, not because one of his references didn't check out or dates of service didn't happen. They've nailed you. I mean, it's because of the criminal record. And then they can, once you do that, then they've kind of got you.
Gotcha. Well, with that, we are out of time. Let me see a few quick things, folks. CrimApollo.com. Check it out, and Derek would be glad to give you a demonstration, show you how that works. And I've looked at it. I've known of his pricing and his process for over last 2-3 years, and I have clients on it and absolutely love it. Next month's topic would be the top recruiting technique. You're not going to hear this from me very often, but the top recruiting technique to increase the quantity and quality of driver recruited. And so I've got anyway, there's the topic for next month. Hey, if you have, and by the way, I see another couple of questions coming in, I will forward these to Derek. Derek, I'm sure, will answer them, and then Laura will forward the answers to everybody. Please email us topics for future webinars. Let me get that out of my mouth. And also, Laura, as in last time, will send you a link to this presentation, and we're placing them out on impacttrans.com. With that, folks, we've had a great turnout today. Thank you, everybody, for being on here. We're looking forward to this has just been a lot of fun. Derek, I don't take lightly your time and your effort, and also Matt for the Ramsey Minute. Thank you guys for your support in this webinar. With that, we're going to stop the webinar at this time, and we'll see you guys next month. Let me give you the date. You'll all get an email anyway. May 26th at 10 a.m. The top recruiting technique to increase the quantity and quality of driver recruited. Thank you very much.